Ikiju daydreams about the allure of being reborn in another world, a common fantasy. He imagines grand adventures like battling monsters or marrying royalty. However, his idyllic dream soon twists into a terrifying ordeal as he finds himself in peril. His nightmare intensifies as a monstrous minotaur confronts him, its presence a terrifying warning. Overwhelmed by fear, Ikiju desperately wishes not to die as the minotaur looms over him. Following his apparent death in the dream, system messages materialize, confirming his first demise and high affinity as an otherworlder. He is bestowed unique skills, a quest system, a trophy system, and notably Return from Hell. The unique skill Return from Hell is noted to activate shortly. Ikiju jolts awake at his office desk, completely disoriented by the experience. His colleague Sayama notices his distress and calls out his name. Still shaken, Ikiju checks himself, relieved that his limbs are intact and dismissing the horrifying vision as just a nightmare. Sayama then alerts him to someone standing behind him. Director Nanis sharply confronts a startled Ikiju, reprimanding him for spacing out and ignoring her. Ikiju, flustered, tries to explain he was just sleepy, but Nanis offers to put him into an eternal sleep, an offer he hastily declines. Nanis, now showing concern, leans in and asks if Ikiju forced himself, as he still feels like he was being chewed alive. She points out the dark circles under Ikiju's eyes. Ikiju denies being unwell, while Nanis emphasizes the importance of health. Director Nanis earnestly advises Ikiju to take good care of his body. This entire exchange triggers a strong sense of déjà vu for Ikiju, as if he's lived this moment before. Sayama observes their interaction, remarking on Nanis's caring side, while Ikiju wonders if it's just his imagination. As Ikiju walks home later, an unsettling feeling of pervasive déjà vu washes over him as if something is off. He dismisses it as signs of aging or perhaps his hair thinning, trying to rationalize the strange sensations. While walking through a quiet residential street at night, Ikiju is on alert. He is startled by a sudden, loud crashing sound nearby. He peers cautiously into the darkness, noticing signs that something heavy has been dragged along the ground. A growing sense of unease grips him as he struggles to see clearly, a horrified expression dawning on his face. From the shadows emerges a terrifying, muscular figure with the head of a bull, the Minotaur. Ikiju stares in stunned disbelief at the Minotaur. The horrifying realization dawns that the monster from his dream is real. The Minotaur lets out a deafening, ferocious roar, its menacing presence filling Ikiju with dread. Overcome with terror, Ikiju turns and flees. He screams for the creature to stay away, his mind reeling from the impossible situation, desperately not wanting to die. Ikiju continues to cry out his desperate plea not to die. The Minotaur charges relentlessly after him, the ground shaking with its pursuit. Ikiju is slammed violently against a wall. Gasping for breath and in immense pain, he knows he must escape quickly. In a horrifying moment, Ikiju looks back to see his own severed lower body. The Minotaur is shown consuming his legs. As his vision fades, Ikiju tragically laments his situation and dying as a virgin. Consciousness wanes as he questions if he is going to die like this. A sudden ping sound cuts through his final thoughts. A large game-like notification screen materializes before the dying Ikiju, announcing quest acquired, defeat the Minotaur. He stares blankly, questioning what it is. Ikiju is incredulous, questioning how he could possibly defeat such a monster. As the Minotaur lunges to deliver the final blow, he resigns himself to being done for. Ikiju jolts awake back at his office desk, gasping for air. Sayama looks on with concern. He clutches his head, utterly bewildered by what just transpired. A quest failed message flashes before Ikiju's eyes. He stares in disbelief, questioning if it's about the monster again as the notification appears. Then it vanishes, leaving him to question what's happening. Another system message appears, confirming his second death and awarding him a bronze trophy along with stat increases to defense and strength. Ikiju is thoroughly confused by the strange board and its contents. Director Nanis approaches, noticing Ikiju's pale complexion and asking if he's feeling unwell. He frantically points towards the system board, exclaiming about the blue-like board that only he can see. Ikiju desperately insists that Nanis look at the board, asking if she's blind. Nanis, unable to see anything, becomes furious at being ignored again. He realizes with dawning horror that something truly strange is happening to him. Later, sitting alone on a park bench, Ikiju tries to make sense of it all, unsure when the board disappeared. He's certain he's rolling back, returning from death, and the thought of going home fills him with dread. He has a sudden realization. A determined Ikiju decides he won't go home, thus avoiding the monster. He reasons that the office should be safe for the time being and heads back. Huddled under a blanket in the deserted office, Ikiju shivers with fear, wondering if he'll go through this again. He grapples with the terrifying reality of his situation, the mysterious game-like board, and his inexplicable resurrections. He resolves to focus on survival for now, despite not understanding anything. Ikiju is abruptly awakened by noises from outside the office. Disoriented, he checks his phone and realizes with a jolt that he has overslept. His phone shows that the date has changed to June 6, 10:02 a.m. A wave of relief washes over Ikiju as he realizes he successfully avoided death by staying at the office. While making coffee, Ikiju notices the office is eerily empty. He hears sirens wailing outside and wonders where everyone, including Director Nanes, could be on a weekday. Suddenly, a violent tremor rocks the entire building, sending Ikiju stumbling and spilling his coffee in shock. He questions what exactly is happening. Ikiju rushes to the window and stares out in stunned horror at a scene of utter devastation, where monstrous creatures rampage through the city streets below. The view from the office window reveals a city under siege by various monstrous creatures spreading destruction. A giant predatory bird is also seen wreaking havoc. Monstrous wolf-like creatures contribute to the city's destruction. Ikiju is aghast, struggling to comprehend the chaos unfolding before him. Reeling from the nightmarish view, Ikiju feels like he's still in a nightmare. He desperately searches for answers on his phone via news reports. The reports detail monsters plundering everywhere, confirming a worldwide crisis. Panicked, Ikiju wonders if he's the sole survivor in the office. He frantically calls out, searching for anyone else. His desperate search leads him to Sayama, who is sitting quietly on a bench near the vending machines. Overjoyed, Ikiju calls out his name, thanking God he's alive. Ikuju's relief shatters as he sees Sayama is dead, his chest gruesomely torn open by a small, goblin-like creature. The sight causes Ikiju to vomit in disgust and horror. Ikiju exclaims in horror that Sayama is being eaten by the creature. He realizes these creatures actively harm humans. The goblin, disturbed, turns its menacing gaze towards Ikiju, who feels a wave of fear, his legs weak. He recognizes the monster as a goblin, often depicted as weak in games, and resolves to crush it if it attacks, though he fears for his life. Despite this, an overwhelming sense of dread paralyses him. He doesn't feel he can win against it. Terrified, Ikiju scrambles backward, yelling for the goblin to stay away. The goblin lunges towards him, its club raised, as Ikiju continues his plea. The goblin leaps and attacks. Ikiju is struck by the creature, surprised by its strength as he cries out in pain. As the goblin raises its crude club for a finishing blow, Ikiju, in a desperate plea, shouts for it to wait. The club swings down with vicious speed. The club connects with a sickening thud, injuring Ikiju. The goblin pauses, seemingly surprised that its victim is still conscious. Ikiju, though wounded, wonders how he's still alive after such a direct hit, while the goblin seems confused. He realizes it's his chance to strike. Seizing the opportunity, Ikiju unleashes a powerful punch. The goblin is sent flying backward into a wall with tremendous force, and Ikiju is shocked by his own power. Ikiju marvels at his newfound strength, having made a hole in the wall, and recalls how the goblin's club had hurt him earlier, yet he survived. He connects this to the stat boosts Def +5, SDR +5 from the board thing he saw after his previous death. Fueled by adrenaline and rage, Ikiju grabs the fallen goblin's club and begins to repeatedly bludgeon the creature. He continues his assault with savage determination. Blood splattering his face, Ikiju stares down at the goblin with manic intensity, declaring it's his payback. He grips the club tightly, letting out a guttural roar. He brings the club down with all his might for a devastating final strike. With a furious cry, Ikiju vows to survive and make it out alive. The brutal attack connects, crushing the goblin's head and ending its life in a spray of gore. Panting heavily and covered in blood, Ikiju stands over the slain goblin. He grimly acknowledges that he finally got the goblin and is now the only survivor in the immediate vicinity. Exhausted and suffering from significant blood loss, Ikiju collapses. His head stings and he can't move his body due to blood loss. He fears he might die staring at the goblin's mangled corpse. Just as another ping echoes, once again a system notification appears before the fallen Ikiju, announcing his level has increased from 1 to 3. It details his bronze trophy for his first monster subjugation and a reward of +5 strength. As Ikiju lies on the floor, a strange and powerful energy begins to flow through him. His body is seemingly being engraved by this new power. Despite the level up, Ikiju feels his consciousness slipping away. He wakes up yet again at his office desk, startled by someone calling his name Ikiju. Director Nanes stands before him, asking if he's feeling unwell after finally waking up. Realizing this is his third return from death, Ikiju immediately bolts from the office, ignoring Nanes' calls for him to wait. Ikiju finds himself on the building's rooftop, overlooking the night city, contemplating the end of the world. He collapses in despair, overwhelmed by the situation and wondering what exactly he should do. Ikuju stares at the screen in disbelief. Suddenly, his personal status screen appears. Ikuju Akari LV13, displaying his current stats, acquired points, unique skill, return from hell, and a crucial note that skill points and stats from previous level-ups will be carried over. Ikuju processes the information, questioning if his accumulated points and stats persist even if his level resets upon death. He exclaims at how this is turning out like a game. Despite the overwhelming confusion, Ikuju finds a spark of determination, deciding it's too soon to give up. He clenches his fists, vowing to raise his level and survive at all costs, no matter what this new reality is. As Ikuju makes his resolve, a final ominous message flashes across the cityscape. Global reversal rate 0.01%. A dire warning flashes across the cityscape. The world will be invaded by monsters in a few hours. At his office desk, Ikuju Akari is acutely aware of this impending doom, and his own unique grim fate of dying repeatedly. Despite this, remembering he possesses a special state, he clenches his fist, determined to survive the inevitable and refusing to give up. He loudly declares his resolve to definitely survive. His sudden outburst in the otherwise quiet office doesn't go unnoticed. Director Nanis appears, sharply striking him with a stack of papers and reprimanding him for raising his voice. Nanis, whom Ikuju addresses as boss now, explains she's been stunned by his behavior and notes everyone else has left. Ikuju, aware this is another loop, tries to convince her to leave first, claiming he has work, though he internally acknowledges how long this has been going on. Nanis questions if he intends to pull another all-nighter. She then offers to handle the remaining tasks herself, insisting he should go home early, much to Ikuju's protest. Nanis firmly reiterates that Ikuju should go home early, telling him not to make her repeat herself. A reluctant Ikuju attempts to protest. Her determined gaze leaves no room for further argument. Having succumbed to Nanis's pressure, Ikuju finds himself by the vending machines, reflecting on how scary Naosan can be when angry. He knows that returning home means facing the Minotaur again and likely another death. He resolves to investigate his mysterious state ability immediately. In an empty hallway, Ikuju strikes a pose and utters the word state. He muses that the dramatic pose itself is meaningless, but the system seems to react to verbal commands. His personal status screen materializes, showing his name Ikuju Akari level 1 with an overall level of 3, detailing his stats, acquired points, and his unique skill, Ausen Kaiki or Return from Hell. He notes that his current high strength and stamina are due to a trophy, and wonders if he can interact with the skill display by touching it. Touching the skill reveals its description. The unique ability Go Back to Hell is a passive skill that activates upon death, returning him to a specific point in the past with distorted causality, much to Ikuju's amazement. He questions if this means the skill sends him back to his death and why he possessed such an ability from the start, pondering if it is regression. He also notes he can swipe to delete information from the status screen. He then recalls gaining points upon leveling up and wonders about their purpose. The system then prompts Ikuju to select a mapping destination for his earned points, allowing him to strengthen his ability values like physical strength or durability. He exclaims in surprise as it then indicates new abilities can be acquired. An extensive list of acquirable skills appears, ranging from physical enhancements to analysis and weapon crafting. Ikuju is awestruck by the sheer number of options. He notes the rising tension and the overwhelming number of abilities available. Among them, he spots a peculiar love story skill. Ikuju realizes he has only 2 points, not enough for most skills that require at least 3, and contemplates saving them. Suddenly, Nanis returns, calling his name, surprised he hasn't left. Panicked that she might see the skill screen, which only he can perceive, Ikuju tries to act casual. As Ikuju stammers for an excuse, Nanis decides to wait for him to finish whatever he is doing. Nanis asks Ikuju if he's still adhering to the company motto. He recalls it as a rather manipulative one. Don't leave your boss and go home first, you are the only one who protects me. He tells her he'll be home soon, internally deciding his priority is to level up safely, even if it means delaying skill acquisition. As they walk, he steels himself for the impending chaos. Nanis observes him with a concerned look. As Ikuju walks ahead, Nanis calls out his name. He turns back to face her. Looking somewhat flustered, Nanis asks if there's anything else he wanted to say. Ikuju reflects on the inherent suffering of life and his perception that Nanis has been enduring her own struggles alone. Nanis gently taps Ikuju's shoulder, encouraging him to confide in her if something is troubling him. With a blush, she reminds him that protecting subordinates is a boss's duty and asks him to trust her for a moment. Ikuju remains silent, processing her words. Nanis then bids him farewell, saying she'll see him tomorrow. As he watches her walk away, Ikuju grimly thinks about the impending catastrophe that will unfold in just a few hours, a fate Nanis is oblivious to. Ikuju tells himself not to overthink and to focus on what actions he can take. He recalls his previous gruesome death at the hands of a goblin, which he misremembers as a leprechaun. He feels a new determination, believing he can now afford to save someone. He walks on alone, hoping Nanis will be fine, yet a dark thought about her potential fate if they meet the monsters crosses his mind. Ikuju makes a stop at a large discount store, likely Don Quixote. He returns to the office laden with bags. Wiping off sweat, he feels he has gathered enough. The supplies include a large amount of food and water. He also acquired knives for weapons, a change of clothes, and a helmet. A first aid kit is also part of his preparations. Among his purchases is an adult magazine, a rather incongruous item given the circumstances. Ikuju exclaims at his own choice of purchase at such a critical time. As he lifts the supply bags, he notes their lightness, attributing it to his increased muscle strength from his level-ups. He decides to use the company office as his operational base for leveling up, since his home is dangerously close to where the Minotaur appears. Back in the office, Ikuju glances at the clock, knowing the monster invasion is imminent. While eating a quick meal and checking his phone, he's startled by a social media post. Someone claiming to be a reincarnated leprechaun from another world, accompanied by a picture of a goblin. He mutters that these creatures are appearing everywhere. The realization of what this means shocks him. His shock intensifies as he sees another report on his phone. A dragon has been discovered in China. He mutters in disbelief, thinking such powerful entities are beyond anyone's ability to handle and should be left to self-defense forces. He wonders if there is something else out there, perhaps sensing a presence nearby. The clock ticks ominously towards the hour. The fateful time arrives and Ikuju announces it is time. He is now fully equipped with knives strapped to his belt. Wearing a helmet and a backpack, he stands ready by the exit. Steeling his resolve, he declares it's time to go. With a determined cry to level up, he steps out of the office and into the unknown dangers that await. Ikuju runs through the deserted early morning streets. His breath comes in ragged gasps as he stays on high alert. He cautiously scans his surroundings for any sign of monsters. Initially, the city seems deceptively calm, making Ikuju wonder if the monsters haven't appeared in this area yet. However, he remains vigilant, certain they are lurking nearby, and decides his strategy will be to target lone goblins one by one. He carefully checks around parked cars, knife at the ready. His search is immediately met with a horrifying discovery, a decapitated corpse slumped in a car. He covers his mouth in shock, a sight he has unfortunately seen before. Though shocked and disgusted, Ikuju forces himself to confront the gruesome reality. He tells himself he must get used to such sights, as they will likely become a routine part of this new world. Still reeling from the grisly find, Ikuju makes a sound of disgust. He is alerted by a commotion nearby and wonders if more monsters have appeared. He questions what kind of monster could be causing the ruckus. He cautiously moves forward, urging himself to be careful. His eyes widen with apprehension at what he might find. He discovers a horrifying scene. A group of goblins is attacking what appear to be police officers and civilians who are screaming in terror. One officer armed with a gun is urged to shoot, but the people cry out that the gun isn't working. Ikuju observes that 4 or 5 goblins have blocked the escape route for the trapped people. The trapped people are panicking, deeming the risk too great, with one officer muttering he cannot help. Ikuju considers that the police are armed, implying they should be able to handle it. He seems hesitant to intervene, clearly conflicted and sweating under the pressure. Suddenly, a system notification appears before Ikuju, announcing the start of an E-Class Goblin mission. He must defeat 100 goblins. He reacts with shock, possibly gritting his teeth. He questions if this is another quest. He exclaims in disbelief at the unreasonable number of goblins he's expected to eliminate. A woman screams for help as a goblin attacks her. Another victim is viciously stabbed by a different goblin. Ikuju watches in horror. An officer named Tanaka-san is overwhelmed by goblins. His colleagues panic, with one yelling at Tanaka-san's attacker, while another urges someone to shoot quickly. An officer manages to shoot a charging goblin. The shot goblin stumbles only momentarily, questioning if its target is dead. Another goblin appears unfazed by the gunfire. The chaos continues as a goblin leaps onto an officer, who fires his gun at point-blank range, eliciting a surprised cry from an onlooker. Witnessing the limited effect of firearms against the numerous goblins, Ikuju anxiously wonders if the bullets will even hold out. He concludes he can't fight them directly and resolves to flee quickly. He tells himself his own life is more important. He tries to convince himself he doesn't care who dies, even as he spots Nanes amidst the terrified, fleeing crowd. The sight of Nanes' terrified face is prominent. Ikuju's resolve to flee wavers as he locks eyes with her. A goblin raises its weapon, about to strike a terrified Nanes. A look of fierce determination fills Ikuju's eyes. Casting aside his helmet and backpack, he abandons his escape plan and rushes headlong towards the danger to protect her. Ikuju charges furiously towards Nanes and the attacking goblins, letting out a defiant yell to draw their attention away from her. He manages to intercept the goblin just as it's about to attack Nanes. Nanes looks up in shock. She exclaims his name and questions his presence, to which Ikuju retorts that her being there is just as surprising. He urgently tells her to run. However, Nanes asks if he has forgotten their company motto. Ikuju, knife drawn and ready, acknowledges the company motto about not leaving the boss behind, asking if that's right. Nanes, tears welling in her eyes, looks at him with a mixture of fear and gratitude, softly uttering his name, Ikuju. Holding his knife firmly, Ikuju acknowledges that people's words hold truth and there is no need to doubt. He recalls Nanes' previous acts of kindness, her words about a boss's duty to protect subordinates, her concern for him when he seemed sick, and her advice to take care of himself first, realizing now always took care of him. Resolved, he thinks that this time, he will be the one to protect her as he faces the oncoming goblins. With newfound determination fueled by his desire to protect Nanes, Ikuju declares he will shield her. A horde of goblins charges towards him. He rushes to meet them. In a breathtaking display of his enhanced combat prowess, Ikuju unleashes a flurry of strikes, skillfully dispatching multiple goblins in a swift, almost instantaneous series of movements, his eyes blazing with focus. Nanes watches in stunned silence as the dust and smoke clear from the battle. She quietly asks if he did all that for her. Ikuju stands amidst the defeated goblins, acknowledging that he took care of that number of enemies in a moment. However, Ikuju's expression suddenly changes. He seems to recall something from before, perhaps a past failure or a realization of further danger. Dropping his helmet, he urgently sprints towards Nanes. He shouts her name as he runs. He frantically yells for her to run away quickly. Ikuju rushes past Nanes, urging her to hurry and escape. Confused, she wonders if he means for her to escape, realizing that despite the danger, he came for her. Just then, more goblins emerge, drawn by the sounds of battle, questioning who called them. Nanes cries out that Ikuju didn't defeat all the goblins and that there's no way he can handle the new wave, while he urges her to hurry. As the goblins close in, Nanes realizes they must run away together. Ikuju quickly scoops her up onto his back. Nanes apologizes, saying her legs gave out, while Ikuju tells her to be patient as they make their escape. Carrying Nanes on his back, Ikuju tells her he'll head back to the company building, believing it's still a safe place. He sprints away, with a fresh horde of goblins relentlessly pursuing them. As Ikuju flees with Nanes, he pants from exertion. She calls him an idiot, pointing out he could have died, while Ikuju, exhausted, apologizes. Nanes repeats that he's so stupid, though her tone softens. Then, overwhelmed with emotion, she buries her face in his shoulder and quietly thanks him, leaving Ikuju surprised. Ikuju, still running, asks Nanes if she said something as he couldn't hear her clearly. Blushing and embarrassed, Nanes tells him it was nothing and not to look at her. As they navigate the carnage-filled streets past the bodies of the fallen, Ikuju silently wonders if he can truly protect this person in this crazy world. The perspective shifts to an apartment building. Inside a messy room, someone cries out to stop hurting them. Another person is seen huddled under a blanket, trembling in fear. A terrified man clutches his phone, sweat dripping down his face. His phone displays online forum posts describing the horrific events unfolding outside, with one user detailing screams and strange creature sounds from their mansion. Users on the forum express their terror, with one admitting they are trembling and another questioning someone still live commenting instead of fleeing. Information is shared about guns being effective only on small monsters and rumors of larger, bulletproof creatures appearing soon. People desperately ask if others are still alive. Some posts convey hopelessness and the fear of being next. One user makes a startling discovery about a status system accessible by thinking the word, urging others to try it, before the thread hits its post limit, cutting off further communication. After treating Nanes' injured leg, Ikuju confirmed it was done. He explained the dire necessity of emergency treatment for any future injuries, which Nanes acknowledged. He had also gathered a variety of supplies including food, drinks, clothes, and bedding, which impressed Nanes with his thorough preparation. Nanes, noticing something among the supplies, questioned what it was. Ikuju wondered what had caught her attention as she called his name. Nanes held up an adult magazine, directly asking Ikuju if he had purchased it. Ikuju became extremely flustered, stammering in denial. However, Nanes, with a slight blush, reassured him that it was quite normal and there was no need for embarrassment, admitting she was merely a little surprised by the find. Ikiju peered out the window, observing the situation outside. Nanace wondered about the situation, and Ikiju commented that it seemed fine for the moment. He then inquired why Nanace had gone to the convenience store so late at night. She explained it was to buy an energy drink to help her pull an all-nighter for work, leading Ikiju to muse about her workaholic tendencies. Nanace, visibly shaken, recounted the horror of witnessing many people die right before her eyes. She desperately questioned why monsters had suddenly appeared in their world, which had been perfectly normal just a few hours prior. Ikiju could only admit that he didn't have an answer either. Ikiju explained that the monsters would relentlessly attack and consume humans. He added that conventional firearms were ineffective, and even the self-defense forces couldn't offer protection. He somberly added that this invasion was a global phenomenon, likely to escalate very soon, perhaps even by the next morning. Nanace listened, a shadow of despair crossing her face as she murmured that it was already happening. Overwhelmed, Nanace lamented that their world had truly reached its end. Ikiju, looking deeply troubled, pondered if this was indeed the finale and questioned the purpose of his unique status, ability in such a scenario. A realization struck him: Nanace might also possess a similar status. He called out to Nanace with this new thought. However, before Ikiju could voice his thought, Nanace succumbed to exhaustion and fell asleep. Ikiju noticed she had fallen asleep. He gently draped a blanket over her, hoping she would get some rest, acknowledging her tiredness. He then reflected on their situation. Their current location in the office was safe until morning, but to ensure their survival beyond that, they desperately needed to increase their levels. Ikiju looked at the office clock, feeling an urgent need to act, realizing he couldn't afford to remain idle. He gazed at the sleeping Nanace. He resolved to venture out, assuring the unconscious Nanace that he would definitely return alive and imploring her to wait for him. He then quietly departed. Now outside in the deserted city streets, Ikiju, knife in hand, declared his intention to resume leveling up. He acknowledged his current limitations, knowing that for now the only monster he could confidently defeat was a lone goblin. He was prepared to fight any such creatures he encountered while searching for goblins. The chilling sounds of numerous screams and gunshots echoed through the city. This made him reconsider venturing further in that direction. His attention was suddenly drawn to two small, winged figures darting through the air in the distance. Ikiju wondered what the creatures were. Upon closer inspection, Ikiju was horrified to identify the flying creatures as giant, grotesque bee-like monsters, capturing and carrying humans, exclaiming at their immense size and repulsive appearance. He watched in disgust as the bee monsters impaled humans with their stingers. He questioned where they intended to take their victims. This new aerial threat forced Ikiju to realize he needed to be wary of the sky. Spotting a nearby alley, he considered it as a potential, albeit uncertain, route forward. Enormous pitcher plant-like monsters ensnared prey with their vines in the alley. Silhouettes of humans were disturbingly visible within them. Recognizing the immediate danger these plants posed, he decided against confronting them. He resolved to continue his search for a more manageable monster to defeat. A distant rumbling sound made Ikiju wonder what it was, initially suspecting a car. His hope turned to terror as a monstrous tusked boar-like creature came into view, charging directly at him with terrifying speed. Overcome with panic, Ikiju realized he was in mortal danger with no apparent place to hide. He spotted a nearby building. He sprinted desperately towards it, hoping against hope that he could reach safety in time. Ikiju barely managed to dive through the entrance of the building as the boar monster crashed into it just moments later. He collapsed on the floor, shattered from the chase. He gasped in relief at his narrow escape. However, his respite was short-lived as he realized with growing dread that new and varied monsters were continuously appearing, and daylight was fast approaching. A sudden sound alerted Ikiju. A goblin emerged, startling him. His initial instinct was to flee. He quickly admonished himself, questioning his purpose for being there if he wasn't prepared to fight. He steeled his resolve, understanding that avoiding this fight meant forfeiting the chance to level up and ultimately to survive. Ikiju quickly assessed the situation. The goblin was alone, appeared to be unarmed, and had no visible allies nearby. With a surge of determination, he declared he could do it. He prepared to engage the creature. Ikiju lunged at the goblin, knife first. He quickly discovered that these creatures possessed an extraordinary life force. Simply stabbing them in the chest or neck was insufficient to kill them. Realizing this, he determined that he would have to sever its entire neck to ensure its demise. He struggled to cut through the goblin's surprisingly tough neck, cursing its resilience. He exclaimed in frustration that his knife was inadequate for the task. The goblin, still very much alive, roared in defiance. It retaliated fiercely, landing a painful blow on Ikiju. Fueled by a desperate rage, Ikiju gathered all his remaining strength and brought his knife down in a powerful, decisive strike, screaming for the goblin to finally die. With a final, gruesome severing, Ikiju succeeded in decapitating the goblin. He collapsed beside its corpse, gasping for breath, a mixture of exhaustion and relief washing over him as he acknowledged his hard-fought victory. A distinct ting sound then echoed, signaling a change. A system notification materialized before Ikiju. He had leveled up from LV1 to LV2, reaching an overall level 4 and gained 2 points to distribute. Ikiju reacted with surprise to the notification. Another message confirmed his progress in an E-class quest for goblin extermination, showing 1 out of 100 defeated, indicating smooth progress. Ikiju sighed, utterly drained from the encounter, remarking on his exhaustion. Sitting amidst the bloody aftermath of the fight, Ikiju somberly reflected that this was the second time he had taken a life, an act he found himself unable to become accustomed to. His thoughts were interrupted by a faint, desperate cry for help. He wondered aloud if someone else was nearby. He moved towards the source of the cries. Following the cries, Ikiju was met with a shocking sight, a severely injured woman crawling helplessly on the floor and bleeding profusely. He stared in horror. He questioned what could have happened and wondering if the goblin he had just dispatched was responsible for her condition. He spotted a pile of human bodies. A horrifying realization dawned upon Ikiju. He berated himself for not noticing sooner. He recalled the bee-like monster carrying a human, understanding they have a place to live. He understood with chilling clarity that these people were being systematically gathered and stored as preserved food. This place, he now knew, served a grim purpose. The grim purpose of the location became terrifyingly clear. Ikiju had stumbled into the goblin's den, surrounded by a massive, overwhelming horde of goblins trapped and in a desperate, seemingly hopeless situation. Ikiju, holding a knife, faced a menacing group of goblins, realizing the danger he was in. He observed a pile of human remains, understanding the grim fate that awaited him if he failed. With terror in his eyes, Ikiju frantically thought that he had to distract the encroaching goblins. Ikiju pointed away, exclaiming that there was a UFO in an attempt to distract the goblins. The goblins momentarily looked in the direction Ikiju pointed. Realizing the trick, the goblins resumed their chase with renewed ferocity, forcing Ikiju to flee. Ikiju sprinted desperately through the building, a horde of goblins hot on his heels. He yelled that despite his appearance, he had experience. He recalled his participation in the National Sports Festival for track and field, determined to use his speed. He pushed himself, believing he could make it just a little further. Goblins continued to close in on Ikiju from multiple angles. Ikiju cursed, wondering where all the goblins were coming from. He formulated a new plan of escape. He decided to head for the escalator with the intention of jumping from a second-floor window. The goblins swarmed up the escalator, relentlessly pursuing Ikiju. Ikiju looked back in terror at the overwhelming number of goblins. He was grabbed and surrounded by the goblins, seemingly trapped. The escalator was completely overrun by goblins, with Ikiju barely visible among them. He thought it was no good and that he would die. He lamented that no matter how he looked at it, there were too many goblins. He considered his ability to return from the underworld, but the odds seemed insurmountable. A vision of Nanes, looking downcast, appeared in Ikiju's mind. His own eyes reflected a desperate struggle for survival. He worried about Nausan and what would happen to her in this world. Remembering his promise to Nanes to return, Ikiju found new strength, shouting that he couldn't just die like that. He launched himself into the horde, fighting with desperate fury. Ikiju, battered and worn, acknowledged that even if he acted cool, he had no moves left. He desperately wondered if there was something like a status update or new skills that could change his dire situation. A sudden realization or event caused him to pause, a glimmer of hope appearing. The system displayed Akira Ikijo LV2 and informed him he could now acquire skills, listing analysis, physical enhancement, and appraisal. Ikiju, surprised, registered that he could acquire skills and understood he had accumulated points. He knew this was no time to be careless in his choice. He decisively selected Physical Enhancement LV1, betting everything on this choice. With newfound power from physical enhancement, Ikiju prepared to strike the horde of goblins. His enhanced fist connected squarely with a goblin's face. The impact of Ikiju's attack sent a wave of goblins reeling backward with tremendous force. The force of his blows sent goblins flying, clearing a path through the horde. Ikiju exclaimed in disbelief at the incredible power he now wielded. Ikiju stood amidst the defeated goblins, observing the destruction he had caused on the escalator. He expressed his amazement at the kind of power this skill granted him. His status screen showed his new level 2 stats, with significant increases in strength, and he couldn't believe how much one skill changed things. Undeterred, a fresh wave of goblins advanced towards him. Ikiju defiantly asked the remaining goblins if they were not done with him yet. He resolved to fight them, preparing for another onslaught. He declared he would keep them company until the end. He leaped into the air, preparing to deliver another powerful blow to the goblins below. A system notification announced that Ikiju had received a bronze trophy and the title the Goblin's Nemesis. Panting heavily amidst the aftermath, Ikiju acknowledged his victory. Ikiju stood triumphantly on a pile of slain goblins, exclaiming that he had defeated them all. Ikiju, amazed by the power of physical enhancement, declared that the goblins didn't scare him anymore. He received a level up notification, reaching overall LV8 and gaining 4 assignable points to strength, stamina, and endurance. He mused that he expected a higher level increase after all those defeats. A distinct ting indicated another system message was incoming. A system message announced the completion of the Class E quest, Goblins with 100 subjugations, and that a reward was forthcoming. Ikiju celebrated the quest completion, noting the large number of goblins he had faced. He wondered what kind of reward he could expect, also recalling the trophy he had won. The quest achievement reward for the Class E Goblins quest was plus 10 points, which surprised Ikiju. The bronze trophy for his first quest granted an additional plus 2 points. Ikiju calculated that with the leveling up points, he had a total of 16 points. He marveled at the possibilities, realizing he could obtain all sorts of skills with that many points. Ikiju reflected on the Goblin's Nemesis title, noting its mixed effects of increased damage and hostility, feeling lucky overall. Suddenly, new and diverse monsters, including a giant insect and a beast, appeared in the distance. A large, shadowy creature made its presence known with destructive force. The ground cracked under the weight of an unseen, powerful entity. A powerful minotaur-like creature armed with a sword stood amidst the chaos. A close-up showed the creature's intense, watching eye. Following his recent level up, Ikiju noted he had 16 usable points to spend. He considered various new skills like evaluation, weapon crafting, armor production, and analysis, wishing he could acquire them all. Ikiju noted that weapon and armor making seemed to require monster materials and significant effort. Prioritizing safety, he thought about crisis detection and enemy scouting. He then had a realization that abilities themselves might also have levels. An option to upgrade his physical strength to level 2 appeared, costing a hefty 20 points. Ikiju felt that after all he had endured, he desperately wanted to gain something. He grappled with the high cost, questioning if he could wait to acquire it later. After a moment of agonizing, he made his decision. A notification confirmed Ikiju had acquired Analysis LV1. He mused that the experience points from goblins were no longer sufficient for leveling up, and knowing an opponent's strength would help him fight safely and acquire more abilities. He also acknowledged that he needed points to improve his physique to level 2. He decided to test his new analysis ability on a nearby defeated goblin. Activating analysis, Ikiju focused on the goblin. He was amazed to see the goblin's stats displayed before him, revealing it was level 3. The detail of its 12 health points particularly surprised him. Realizing it was already noon, Ikiju grew worried about Naosan. He felt the urge to return to work and began to run. He hurried out into the streets, only to be confronted by 2 menacing wolves. Ikiju quickly used analysis on one of the creatures, identifying it as a gray wolf level 13. He noted with alarm that its stats were significantly higher than his own, making him question if he could even win against them. The 2 wolves looked fierce and ready to attack. To Ikuju's surprise, the wolves suddenly turned and fled. He wondered why they were escaping. He briefly wondered if they had run away because they were afraid of him, amusing himself with the thought that his strength could not be completely hidden. However, he quickly dismissed this, knowing he had no time for such thoughts and needed to hurry. As Ikiju continued, he was struck by an unsettling silence permeating the area. There were no gunshots, no screams, and he could not even sense any monster presence. He wondered what was happening. Then a distinct, ominous sound reached his ears, filling him with dread. A colossal, heavily muscled minotaur wielding a massive axe loomed in the distance, its sheer size dwarfing Ikiju. Ikiju realized with horror that it was a minotaur. He surmised the creature was the cause of the unnerving silence, and seeing it was still some distance away, thought his first instinct should be to escape. Yet a part of him, emboldened by his victory over 100 goblins, questioned if he should really run away like that. He considered the possibility that even with his current self, he might be able to win. He decided to use his analysis skill to assess the threat. The Minotaur stood menacingly, its powerful form radiating pure threat. The analysis results were devastating. The boss Minotaur was level 45, with stats far exceeding anything Ikiju could handle. He He stared in disbelief, muttering that this creature was impossible to defeat. The sheer power difference left him in shock. There was no way he could win. Ikiju immediately turned to flee, exclaiming that the difference in power was too vast compared to the goblins. He admitted to himself that he had been terribly wrong. His earlier confidence was completely misplaced as the Minotaur charged, its steps shaking the ground. As the Minotaur closed in with terrifying speed, Ikiju had a horrifying realization. He was nothing more than bait. The Minotaur unleashed a powerful attack, sending a destructive force careening through the air. The attack slammed into a nearby building with immense force. The shockwave of the Minotaur's attack ripped through the building. Ikiju was sent crashing amidst the rubble, battered and bleeding. Severely injured, Ikiju knew he could not possibly defeat the Minotaur and that his only option was to escape. He struggled to get to his feet. His thoughts turned to Naosan, determined to survive for her, and he tried to flee quickly. Just as he tried to flee, a chilling system notification appeared. The overall reversal rate had exceeded 1%, meaning the monster would regain some of its original power. Ikiju was aghast at the mention of the reversal rate. He realized the monster regaining its original power meant the situation had just become even more desperate. The empowered Minotaur stomped closer, its presence overwhelming. Ikiju, injured and terrified, could only stare in horror. He weakly pleaded for it to stay away. The Minotaur's stats updated, revealing it was now Boss Minotaur LV80, significantly stronger than before. Absolute despair washed over Ikiju as he faced this insurmountable foe. The outcome was grim, with a notification confirming his death for the 4th time, as the Minotaur, now even more powerful due to the rising world reversal rate, ensured his despair only deepened. Now reacts angrily to Ikuju's sudden embrace, slapping him. She demands to know what he is doing, worried about being seen, while Ikiju, bewildered on the floor, mutters about letting someone kill him so he could go back. The chilling realization that he was dead again struck him. He then questioned his own sanity and what he was thinking. Ikiju recalled the Minotaur's sudden power increase to level 80, wondering how it had become so much stronger. A system notification clarified that because the world reversal rate had surpassed 17%, he would regain some of his original power, implying the same for monsters. He questioned if this increasing world reversal rate was making all monsters stronger across the city. He deduced this power-up likely happened after midday, as indicated by the clock. He concluded that the more time passed, the more powerful the monsters would become. Realizing they could not win against such escalating threats, Ikiju decided their only option was to run away. He resolved that they had to escape for now. He headed towards a vehicle, determined to make his escape. In a car with a driver, Ikiju urged him to head towards Kanagawa Prefecture. He intended to get as far from the city as possible. Silently, Ikiju planned to find a safe haven and then retrieve Naosan. Their escape was abruptly interrupted when the driver spotted a wild boar on the road ahead. The wild boar was revealed to be a level 12 monster, and the driver remarked on the rarity of seeing such a creature in town. Ikiju was alarmed that monsters had already appeared this far out. The driver expressed a bad feeling about the situation. He swerved sharply to avoid the creature. Suddenly, blinding headlights confronted them. The driver cried out in shock, while Ikiju demanded to know what was happening. Ikiju stared in disbelief, asking what that was. They saw 2 cars completely demolished, blocking their path. Before them stood a formidable orc. Ikuju's ability displayed its stats, revealing it as a level 37 orc. Ikuju's eyes, reflecting the runic analysis, widened in terror at the sight of the new, powerful threat. Ikiju frantically yelled for the driver to accelerate, while the panicked driver urged a quick escape. However, their escape attempt was cut short as the orc violently smashed into their car. In another attempt to escape, Ikiju found himself on a train, with now calling out his name. He knew they could not stay in this town and had to go far away. He internally resolved that they must travel much farther away to find safety. The train suddenly lurched violently, throwing the passengers into a panic. The passengers questioned what was happening and if the train was leaning. Amidst the chaos, Ikiju realized with dread that the train itself was floating, fearing an accident. The passengers screamed in terror as the train was tossed about. A colossal level 70 boss giant, an ape-like monster, was revealed to be the cause of the commotion, gripping the train and crushing it in its massive hands. Ikiju was once again in a state of despair, thinking it was hopeless as now called out to him. He realized the futility of running, as no matter which way he went, he would be killed by the monsters in the city. The monsters surrounding the city would inevitably kill him. And even if he did not run, even if he hid, they would find him in the end. He reflected on the agonizing, endless cycle. He died, returned to the underworld, reincarnated, and died again. It was a living hell with no end, as he was shown being attacked by yet another monstrous creature. back at his desk, looking utterly defeated after another death, now quietly observed him. Now approached Ikuju with concern, asking if he was okay, but he dismissively said he was going home. As he walked away, he muttered to himself that he had not tried one particular method yet. A desperate thought crossed Ikuju's mind. Perhaps if he killed himself, he could finally break free from this hellish loop. He convinced himself that this must be the way out. Determinedly, he walked towards the rooftop access. He emerged onto the building's rooftop. Standing on the edge of the rooftop, Ikuju prepared to jump. He closed his eyes, pleading to his god to please let him die. Just as Ikuju was about to jump, now suddenly appeared and grabbed him, pulling him back from the brink, demanding to know what on earth he was doing. Ikuju, shocked by her presence, questioned now about her actions. He wondered why she was there, as now simply urged him to come with her. Ikuju, concerned, asked now if she was alright after her sudden intervention as she caught her breath. Now flustered, insisted she did not like this, clarifying it was not him she disliked but the heat of the moment or the exertion. Now then added that perhaps he was right about needing to get away from it all. Before Ikuju could explain his actions, now claimed she was just trying to get some air herself. She then abruptly asked Ikuju if he was free now. Now adopting a surprisingly assertive tone, declared it was an order from the boss and proposed they go for a drink, remarking it had been a long time. Ikuju was taken aback by her sudden suggestion, questioning what she meant. At an izakaya, Ikuju tells now he isn't in the mood to drink. Now after serving him 2 large mugs, retorts that his reluctance doesn't make any sense. Ikuju exclaims that he is a student. Now unimpressed, suggests he should just go home or even jump out the window if he feels that way. Now then challenges Ikuju to a drinking contest, proposing that if he can finish his drink before her, he wins. Ikuju hesitantly agrees. With a determined look, now quickly downs her entire mug, declaring victory and leaving Ikuju utterly shocked by her impressive speed. Now reminisces, remarking that it has been a long time since they talked like this, similar to how they used to chat after club activities. Overwhelmed, Ikuju clutches his head, feeling as though it's the end of the world. Now then asks if he remembers, pointing out that he has the same distressed expression on his face even now. Concerned, now tells Ikuju that as his boss, she's worried about him and asks him to confide in her about what happened. Ikuju looks at her intently, then asks if she would believe him if he told her that in a few hours the world would be destroyed by monsters. Now is left speechless by his grave question. Now cautiously asks Ikuju if he has any proof for his extraordinary claim. He confidently replies that he does, checking his phone. He explains that in a few minutes, a thread with pictures of dragons found in China will appear on a live channel website. Now checking her own phone, is astonished to find the exact thread, asking him how he could have possibly known. Stunned by his foresight, now asks if Ikuju is in a spur. He admits she isn't entirely wrong, explaining that he has experienced these events over and over again due to certain ability. He then instructs now to try calling out the word status. Now thoroughly confused, questions what he means by ability or status, wondering if it's some kind of skill. She further questions if it's related to their current situation. Upon saying status, a translucent screen materializes before now. She exclaims in shock, wondering if she's hallucinating, admitting she hasn't figured it out yet. Ikuju reassures her it's not a hallucination but a status screen, uniquely visible only to her. He reveals that he has returned from death multiple times thanks to the unique abilities of his own status. He asks if she will believe him now, leaving now dumbfounded by the revelation of a status only visible to her. Now still trying to comprehend the situation, observes that Ikuju seems incredibly broken and asks if it's due to his back to hell ability, which he confirms. She then hesitantly inquires how many times he has looped through this experience. Ikuju quietly responds 15. Visibly shaken, now then asks what happened to the people when the monsters appeared in the world. Ikuju grimly explains that he doesn't know about everyone, but at least the people of this town will ultimately be killed by the Minotaur monster. Now processes his statement that he has never survived past noon. Now asks why not, and he clarifies that after noon, the monsters in this world grow significantly stronger. No matter what he tries or where he hides, the enhanced Minotaurs always find and murder him. Ikuju elaborates that when he dies, he returns to the past, effectively meaning he can never truly die. Now listens with concern as he confesses his despair. He admits he doesn't know what to do with his life. He feels trapped, explaining that levels and skills are meaningless if one becomes a monster, and he cannot escape this hell, making it useless to talk to anyone. Looking defeated, Ikuju tells now he's tired and pleads for her to leave him alone. Now quietly asks if he understands now. Ikuju turns away. Ikuju simply reiterates his exhaustion. Suddenly, now clearly intoxicated, slams her hands on the table, exclaiming that she's tired too and wants to be left alone. She then abruptly orders Ikiju to sit down quickly, insisting she hasn't finished talking to him yet. Ikiju, startled by her outburst, realizes she's drunk and mutters that drunk people can be very serious. Now tries to pull him back to his seat. In her drunken state, now forcefully flips Ikiju onto his back, calling him a complete idiot. Ikiju yelps in surprise and pain from the sudden takedown. She then angrily demands to know if he even tried to fight once. Still pinning Ikiju down, now clarifies that she's talking about defeating the Minotaur before it gets upgraded. Ikiju cries out that he hasn't tried it and now demands to know why not. He explains his despair, saying he sees no hope for the world beyond that point. He elaborates that the next town is ruled by giant monsters or plagued by orcs, and even if they defeat the Minotaurs, the cycle of destruction will just repeat itself. Now enraged that Ikiju seems to be giving up, she exclaims that she'll smash his face into the ground and then repeatedly slams his head against the floor. Ikiju, in agony, begs her to stop. Ikiju cries out in anguish that he has no choice but to surrender. He adds that if he could, he would die right now. He screams that he doesn't want to live alone in this world. Now her anger subsiding into concern, quietly tells him not to say such things. With tears welling in her eyes, now looks at Ikiju. She reassures Ikiju that he is not alone and that she is on his side, no matter the time of day or the world he's in. However, her voice trembles as she adds that he let her die, and because of that, he doesn't have to worry about her. Ikiju gently tells now that if he can just have a drink with her and share a laugh at the end, that would be fine with him. Overcome with emotion, now cries that if it hurts, she will be there for him. She then tearfully begs him not to try to die in front of her again, calling him an idiot. Ikiju somberly admits that he has died so many times he has lost sight of it. Now heartbroken, cries out that she was supposed to protect him and didn't even get the chance. Anguished, she demands how he could say such things. After her emotional outburst, now sits dejectedly, murmuring that she made a very ugly scene. Ikiju tries to comfort her, saying she doesn't need to be so depressed and offers her some water. Now meekly accepts with a yes. She's still lamenting her perceived ugliness and muttering about boogers. Ikiju suddenly bursts into laughter. He tells now that she's very serious. Now looks up in surprise. He then adds that he's too much of an idiot to be so serious himself. Ikiju takes a drink. With renewed determination, Ikiju declares he is going to fight against the Minotaur. Now surprised but resolute, offers to fight with him if that's the case. However, Ikiju admits he still can't beat it and will have to repeat this world several more times. Now understands this means he must say goodbye to his current self. He doesn't know how many times this will take, but he assures her he'll be back someday. Ikiju, his gaze firm and determined, promises her that he will save her. Now smiles gently, telling Ikiju that she will wait for him. Ikiju acknowledges the grim truth. If they do not avoid the future where the city is destroyed by the Minotaur, neither he nor now will survive. Standing resolute against the city backdrop, he declares with unwavering determination that he won't run anymore. He will defeat the Minotaur. Ikiju, resolute, steps into a deserted shopping arcade, stating his readiness to proceed. As he walks further into the arcade, a sudden clattering noise from behind startles him. Two barrels rumble towards him down the arcade path. He wonders what kind of monster it could be, perhaps leprechauns. Ikiju, wary, decides to kill it just in case, drawing his weapon. A girl emerges from one of the barrels, screaming. Ikiju is shocked to see it's a girl. She looks at him in terror, calling him a monster. The girl frantically pleads for help. The girl explains she was on her way to a shelter with her mother and sister when her sister got separated, and they encountered a monster while looking for her. Ikiju dryly comments on her hiding in a dumpster, though he understands her situation. She clings to him tightly, making it hard to walk, apologizing for being so scared. She adds that she's only 25 years old, as a raven observes them. The raven caws loudly, startling Ikiju. He mutters about the raven as the girl looks on, confused. He shouts at the girl to get away from him, claiming he can't deal with this situation. He then thinks about needing to reach the next level and questions why he's wasting his time. The girl, confused, asks why he came for her if he's so scared and wasting time. AI explains she couldn't stay put because her sister Mai is out there crying alone, and she's determined to find her. As they proceed, Ikiju spots Ivy on the ground, recognizing it. He urgently warns AI not to step on the ivy. Ikiju warns AI that the ivy is a cannibal monster and will drag her in if she steps on it, though it's okay if untouched. AI panics, realizing she can't move. Despite Ikuju's plea to calm down, she exclaims her legs are stuck. She is suddenly pulled away, screaming. Ikiju manages to catch AI. He asks if she's alright and she replies she's fine. AI thanks him, though Ikiju seems unsure about the situation. Suddenly, Ikiju hears a cry related to Mai and exclaims in shock and confusion. AI then realizes her backpack is gone. AI calls out to Maya as Ikiju calls AI's name, both rushing forward. AI gasps in horror at what she sees. Her sister Maya is ensnared by a large cannibal plant monster, its stats revealing it as a level 9 threat. Maya is crying out in terror. Ikiju tells AI to get behind him, shouting Maya's name. He warns her that if she gets in range of the plant, she won't survive. AI cries out for Maya, who is held by the plant. Ikiju firmly tells AI not to move. He prepares to engage the monster, reiterating his command for her to stay put. Ikiju charges the cannibal plant, dodging an attack. He skillfully slices through its whipping tendrils with his dagger. However, one tendril manages to wrap around his arm. Ikiju realizes with alarm that his single goblin dagger is no match for the formidable plant. AI watches in terror, fearing they can't go on like this. She believes they will all be eaten. Suddenly, AI dashes towards the monstrous plant, screaming. Ikiju and Mai look on in disbelief. Ikiju yells, asking what she is doing, while Mai cries out that AI will get them all killed. AI calls out to Mai as she runs towards her sister, who weakly responds. AI reaches Mai, reassuring her tearfully that it's okay and she promises to save her, telling her not to worry. Mai, overwhelmed, cries out sis. AI grabs Mai's hand, trying to pull her free from the plant's grasp. AI watches with wide eyes. Inspired by AI's bravery, Ikiju leaps into action, dodging tendrils and aiming for the plant's core. With a powerful strike, Ikiju slices the cannibal plant cleanly in half. Ikiju lands, catching his breath after defeating the plant. He thinks with relief that a larger threat is not yet aware of the three of them. AI and Mai embrace, crying in relief and fear, Mai calling out to her sister. Ikiju reflects that perhaps helping people isn't such a bad idea. AI tentatively addresses him. Holding Mai, she tearfully thanks him for saving them, promising they will never forget his kindness. Ikiju looks away, flustered by their gratitude, trying to downplay his actions. The moment of relief is shattered as AI is suddenly and brutally decapitated. Ikiju stares in horrified disbelief. AI's body falls to the ground. AI's lifeless body slumps to the ground in a pool of blood. Mai, still in shock, cradles her sister. Ikiju reacts with an aghast sound. The gaping maw of an enormous monster appears, and a voice questions why he bothered. A colossal man-eater monster level 22 towers over them. Ikiju can only utter shit as he faces this new, overwhelming threat. The title, Only I Know That This World Will Eventually End, appears, underscoring the grim reality with a poignant image of AI and Mai. Ikuju's eyes reflect his sheer terror and disbelief. He stands before the towering man-eater, cursing the overwhelming threat. Ikiju assesses the man-eater, recognizing it as a level 22 foe with formidable stats, concluding he cannot fight this thing. He acknowledges the overwhelming difference in their levels, realizing there's no choice but to escape. Despite his urgent need to flee, Ikiju finds his body unresponsive, questioning his own paralysis. The image of AI comforting a crying Mai flashes before him, likely the cause of his hesitation. Stealing his resolve, Ikiju grips his knife with fierce determination. He declares to himself that he cannot run away and will not give up. The monstrous man-eater looms, ready to attack. Ikiju leaps into the air, striking downwards with all his might. He understands the gravity of the situation. A strong and quick attack is his only hope, as failure means death if he is hit. He believes that landing a solid blow will be a turning point in the fight. Ikiju maneuvers for another strike, exploiting the monster's weakness. He observes that the monster's defense is fragile, and it's not the level difference that truly scares him, renewing his hope that they can win. He exclaims with renewed vigor as he continues his attack. Ikiju is shocked to see his goblin dagger break mid-combat. The broken pieces of his weapon fall to the ground. He quickly resolves to fight on, choosing a different approach. He prepares to strike with his fist, determined to press the attack. With a mighty roar of shred, Ikiju lands a devastating punch on the man-eater. He feels a surge of satisfaction, exclaiming that the hit was great. His fist makes contact with the monster, the force of the impact evident. He cries out in alarm, realizing he cannot help it and exclaiming, "Oh shit." Ikiju is sent flying through the air by the monster's counterattack. He is sent flying a considerable distance, a trail of debris marking his path. The impact is powerful, shaking the surroundings, leaving nothing in its wake. The scene shows the devastation caused by the ongoing battle. Ikiju, heavily injured, pants for breath. He sees Mai huddled over AI, a stark reminder of the tragedy. The devastating realization hits him: this world is utterly unreasonable and cruel. A memory of AI comforting Mai appears, AI's voice tinged with hesitation. AI's determined voice then echoes, "That's why." Back in the present, Ikiju stands defiant before the man-eater. The monster roars, ready to continue the fight. With a defiant cry that he cannot afford to lose, Ikeju hoists a massive tanker truck above his head, identifying it as a tank. The man-eater seems to register the improbable sight of Ikeju lifting the truck. The monster is caught in a massive fiery explosion. The flames continue to rage, consuming the area where the monster stood. Ikeju observes that the creature has become significantly smaller. He wonders aloud if it's incapable of regenerating from this attack. Ikeju stands amidst the fiery destruction, asserting that vegetable monsters are weak against fire, calling it a promise. The intense power of the fire is visually emphasized. Weary from the battle, Ikeju surveys the scene. He receives notifications for leveling up, having completed level 9 and level 15. The system instructs him to distribute 20 points. He laments his weakness, feeling he can't save anyone or even protect the people he cares about. Recalling his failures, he thinks about his status and inability to keep them safe. Meanwhile, a pack of ominous wolves emerges from the nearby woods. He focuses on his physical enhancement skill, currently at level 2, considering it for an upgrade, always aiming to improve. The system describes passive skills, which increase strength, endurance, and speed, and asks if he wants to spend 20 points to increase the skills level. A notification confirms, skill acquired physical enhancement LV2. The menacing wolves continue to watch. Ikeju's updated stats are displayed. Akira Ikijo LV 815 with health 22, strength 37, endurance 31, speed 26, and luck 16, alongside his unique abilities including physical enhancement LV2. Filled with renewed determination, he vows to change this cursed world, his resolve to embrace it passionately warming his heart. On a rooftop overlooking the city, Ikeju anticipates an imminent event. He murmurs that it is about time. Just then, a massive insectoid creature plummets from the sky, crashing violently onto a nearby building. Ikeju swiftly deals with the monstrous threat, leaping clear as it explodes. He internally notes that thanks to a circumnavigation privilege, fighting medium-level monsters is quite manageable. A system notification confirms that he has successfully leveled up. His status reveals he is Akira Ikijo, level 2 with 25 points, having earned 10 new points. He considers that reaching physical strengthening level 3 would allow him to defeat the Minotaur, but he's still far from that goal. It took over 10 hours for a single level up, making the prospect of gaining another 20 levels seem arduous. He muses that while quest rewards offer the fastest way to gain points, there might be limitations. Ikeju observes that current quests are exclusively for taking down minotaurs, with no options for battling lower-level creatures like goblins. He concludes that, apart from the formidable minotaur, there are no other monsters in the city that surpass his current strength. Standing amidst the remnants of his battles, Ikeju wonders about other beneficial skills, feeling uncertain about his next step. His attention is caught by a new skill, Magic Circuit Level 1. He reacts with surprise, recognizing it as a passive ability that could grant magic power even to those without natural aptitude. A confirmation message appears he has acquired the skill. Upon reviewing his updated stats, which now show his magic power at 1 and 0 earned points, Ikeju has a crucial insight. He realizes that by combining this new skill with leveling up to increase his magic power, he might be able to confront the Minotaur even without reaching level 30. Clenching his fist, needing just 5 more levels, he resolves to proceed. Ikeju throws himself into a relentless series of battles. He fells wolves, achieving 19 confirmed kills and leveling up, muttering that they are almost there. Against a giant serpent, he secures his 21st kill, his resolve unbroken. Facing yet another beast, he levels up once more, his determination to defeat the Minotaur unwavering, even as his 23rd death is confirmed. With a final, desperate cry, he earns the bronze trophy, the hunter fueled by his commitment to now. A notification announces another level up. He has progressed from completed level 29 to level 30. However, this achievement is accompanied by the confirmation of his 24th death. Later, Ikeju sits with a serious expression at a desk in what appears to be an office, as someone calls his name. Now his boss playfully scolds Ikeju for ignoring her. She then expresses her astonishment at his newfound strength. Now asks Ikeju if he was always this powerful. Ikeju, in turn, expresses his gratitude to Now, explaining that her words provided him with the strength to endure and do his best without faltering. Ikeju informs a visibly flustered Now that he has something important to tell her once everything is settled. Startled, Now questions the suddenness of his statement. She then earnestly requests that he remain in the office until then, no matter what transpires outside. Ikeju cryptically replies that he will leave then, leaving Now puzzled. Now calls out as he departs. As Ikeju walks out of the building, he considers his preparations. His status screen shows Akira Ikijo at level 130, with magic power now at 6 and 10 points earned, noting his magic power is sufficient. He reflects that his combat style is limited to melee. Finally, he activates his magic circuit skill. Loosening his tie, Ikiju steels himself, believing he has done all he can to prepare and must now face the challenge with everything he has. A fleeting memory surfaces of a drunken night when his colleagues supported him, one scolding him for his excessive drinking. Another colleague in the memory made an unexpected confession. As he walks on, he reflects that the current situation feels eerily similar. Ikiju arrives at a significant location, remarking that this is where it all began. A system notification abruptly appears. The search has been activated. It details a Class C quest to locate and defeat the Minotaur, which Ikiju recognizes as the monster he supposedly defeated previously. He stands ready, his expression resolute. From the shadows of a doorway, the colossal and menacing Minotaur emerges, towering over Ikiju. Despite his trembling limbs and the overwhelming intimidation emanating from the beast, Ikiju stands firm. He declares to the Minotaur that he has returned to settle the score, as the familiar sensations of pain and fear wash over him. Yet he knows he has no alternative but to fight. The Minotaur, distinguished by a glowing symbol on its forehead, charges forward aggressively, kicking up debris as it advances. The Minotaur launches a devastating strike, the force of which tears through the surroundings. However, Ikiju, gritting his teeth, realizes with grim satisfaction that he recognizes the monster's attack patterns from their past confrontations. Capitalizing on his knowledge of its movements, Ikiju delivers a powerful, direct blow to the Minotaur's face. Brimming with fierce determination and rage, Ikiju roars that the real fight begins now, cursing the Minotaur. The battle escalates. Ikiju propels himself through the air, launching a dynamic attack towards the Minotaur amidst the chaotic debris. The Minotaur lets out a furious roar as the text proclaims the commencement of an intense, decisive battle. Now looks out the window, sensing a disturbance. She audibly questions what is happening outside. Worried, now wonders if something has happened to Ikiju, recalling his parting words. Ikiju evades the Minotaur's destructive rampage through the city streets. Ikiju narrowly avoids an attack from the Minotaur. He curses inwardly, admitting that despite predicting its moves, he cannot fully counter them. The Minotaur prepares another devastating swing of its axe. Ikiju grits his teeth in frustration as the attack comes. Steel beams and debris fly as the Minotaur's attack connects with the surroundings. The destructive force continues to ripple outwards. Caught in the onslaught, Ikiju coughs, noting the sheer power contained in even a minor scratch from the Minotaur. A display shows Ikiju's stats, highlighting his strength and endurance, and his conclusion that a direct hit means death. A battered Ikiju faces the Minotaur. He admits to himself that this is his limit, while the Minotaur seems to confirm his assessment. Ikiju resolves to use his sprint skill, which activates with a 60-second duration. The Minotaur continues its relentless advance. Ikiju's eye gleams with focus as he channels his enhanced speed. He lands a powerful, super-fast blow on the Minotaur. He reflects that he got carried away with the momentum and exerted too much force initially. The Minotaur reels from the attack, showing that it is affecting him. Ikiju decides to refine his approach, focusing on minimal movements and concentrating his power on a single point. He unleashes a more controlled, focused attack. Ikiju connects with a powerful, electrically charged strike to the Minotaur's torso. The impact sends the Minotaur flying, smashing through a concrete wall. Impressed, Ikiju acknowledges that the sprint skill allows him to surpass the Minotaur's speed. He explains that sprint consumes magic power for a speed increase, and his magic circuit skill provides that power. A description of the sprint skill details its mechanics, while Ikiju realizes its 60-second time limit is crucial. Determined, Ikiju vows to defeat the Minotaur before the skill expires. Ikiju delivers a rapid series of blows to the Minotaur, utilizing his superior speed. Ikiju expresses his frustration at being unable to land a decisive blow despite his efforts. He realizes he needs a new plan, as the end of his skill's duration means his defeat. A new plan forms in Ikiju's mind. Ikiju smashes through a building facade. The Minotaur looks down at Ikiju, conceding his toughness. The Minotaur taunts Ikiju, questioning his ability to handle steel beams. Ikiju flies towards the Minotaur, proclaiming this is the end. His face is set with fierce determination as he prepares his final attack. The battle culminates in a massive explosion of power and debris. Ikiju stands amidst the aftermath of the destructive clash. Exhausted but triumphant, Ikiju murmurs that he did it. To Ikiju's shock, the Minotaur, though grievously wounded and pierced by steel beams, remains standing, its defeat uncertain. Exhausted but victorious, Ikiju confirms to himself that he managed to do it. He exclaims that he has finally defeated the creature. Ikiju lies on the ground, utterly exhausted from the battle. He laughs weakly, stating that it's finally over and the beast serves it right. He decides that after a short break, he will go to Naosan's place. However, looking up at the sky, he suddenly feels that something is strange. The Minotaur, despite its grievous wounds, questions why the quest completion screen isn't appearing for Ikiju. The creature forcefully pulls itself free from the impaling steel beams. It rises once more, much to Ikiju's shock. Ikiju's eyes widen in disbelief, muttering that this cannot be happening. Ikiju despairs, acknowledging that even with his best effort, he still couldn't kill the Minotaur. He panics, exclaiming that the monster is coming for him. The Minotaur crouches, ready to launch another assault, as Ikiju's skill timer continues to count down. The Minotaur lets out a tremendous roar, a visible wave of force exploding outwards. The powerful shockwave travels across the city. People in a nearby public area are startled, questioning if they heard a scream and commenting on the creepy atmosphere. Suddenly, the shockwave tears through the plaza, sending debris flying. Onlookers are stunned by the explosion, one asking if it was a bomb while another wonders what happened. They are further shocked to see Ikiju amidst the debris, exclaiming that a person fell out of nowhere. The crowd observes the large crater, speculating about a terrorist attack and the unsettling holes in the structure. A concerned young woman approaches Ikiju, asking if he is all right and urging someone to call for an ambulance. Ikiju, severely injured, admits he doesn't know if he's alive and can't feel or move his body. He questions how he was defeated by just its roar, especially since he had used his sprint skill, while the girl asks if he is okay. With great effort, Ikiju warns the girl to quickly run away. Another powerful force approaches them, kicking up dust and debris. People on a higher vantage point look down, one exclaiming for others to look and another asking if it's for real. More onlookers gather, some taking photos, wondering if it's CG and what it is. The Minotaur lands in the plaza, causing people to shout in alarm that it's a monster, while some are still amazed by its appearance. The Minotaur reaches out and grabs the young woman who is trying to help Ikiju. The terrified woman cries out for it to wait as the Minotaur looks down on her. The Minotaur leaps away with the screaming girl, while other bystanders flee in terror. Civilians flee in terror, shouting for others to run and move away. Armed officers arrive on the scene and begin shooting at the Minotaur. Ikiju, still injured, mutters that it's no use. He realizes with despair that they cannot defeat the creature. Ikiju laments that it's impossible for him as he always fails when it matters most, a pattern from his past. He believes that because of him, everyone around him dies. He feels he cannot protect anyone. Ultimately, he concludes that he cannot save anyone. The Minotaur stands amidst the destruction, focusing on Ikiju. It advances on Ikiju, who is still down and injured. The Minotaur lets out a guttural sound, ready to attack. Suddenly Now appears, wielding a makeshift weapon and shouting at the Minotaur to look at her. Ikiju, witnessing Nao's arrival, is stunned into silence. Nao looks determined, calling out his name with concern. Nao confidently tells the Minotaur that she will be its opponent. Ikiju screams at her to stop, wondering why she is there when he told her not to go outside. He urgently shouts for Nao to run away. Nao turns to Ikiju, questioning what he is saying. Nao passionately declares that protecting subordinates is the responsibility of a leader. Ikiju looks on, affected by her words. Ikiju thinks with dread that Nao will die if things continue this way. He struggles to move his unresponsive limbs, urging himself to get up. He questions the purpose of his fight, thinking it's meaningless if he's the only one to survive. Ikiju, with newfound determination, vows he will not let the Minotaur take her away. He declares he will risk everything in this moment to definitely save her, as his skill timer nears its end. Ikiju acknowledges that he has surpassed his body's limits, finding it difficult to breathe as his entire body burns, yet he clings to life. His resolve is absolute, he will not let Naosan die. A system message indicates his sprint skill has less than a tenth of a second remaining. Nao watches in shock as Ikiju speeds towards the Minotaur, the sprint skill duration now at 0.71 seconds. From Ikiju's perspective, the world blurs as he races against time, the skill's effect now at 0.63 seconds. The Minotaur's hand closes in on Nao. Nao stands defiantly before the towering beast. Ikiju's eyes widen in terror at the sight. Ikiju recalls Nao calling out to him. He remembers Nao asking if he was feeling sick and encouraging him to talk if something was bothering him. Nao's desire to simply be with him and enjoy drinks together echoes in his thoughts. His resolve solidifies he will save Naosan. Nao's determined expression as she tells him she will be waiting flashes in Ikiju's mind, strengthening his resolve. Ikiju thinks not yet. He believes he can make it in time, his axe standing ready. Ikiju grips his axe tightly. He launches himself towards the Minotaur with incredible speed. The sprint skill's effect duration is now critically low at 0.03 seconds. The Minotaur turns its attention to the rapidly approaching Ikiju, sprint skill at 0.02 seconds. Ikiju prepares to strike as the sprint skill reaches its final 0.01 second. Despite the sprint skill expiring at the critical moment, Ikuju's sheer momentum carries him forward, allowing him to land a devastating blow against the Minotaur. Ikuju stands firm after delivering the powerful strike. A look of grim satisfaction crosses Ikuju's face. The crowd watches in stunned silence. The Minotaur roars in pain, dark energy emanating from its wound. Now sits on the ground, looking towards the aftermath. She watches with a mixture of shock and hope. Onlookers begin to question what transpired. Ikuju stands amidst the dissipating energy, as a bystander wonders if he defeated it. A system notification dramatically announces that the C-Rank quest, Minotaur, has been cleared with 1 kill confirmed and rewards will be given. The crowd erupts into cheers as Ikuju is awarded a silver trophy for defeating the strong foe, along with boosts to his stamina, strength, and speed plus 50 points. A system message confirms the boss monster's defeat and the decrease in world inversion progression. Another message announces Ikuju's level up from 30 to 38, granting him 8 points. Ikuju, battered and weary, murmurs that it's really over this time. Now calls out to Ikuju. Ikuju turns to see Now walking towards him. Now looks at Ikuju with deep concern. Relieved, Ikuju calls out Now-san's name, expressing his happiness that she is alive. Overcome, Ikuju begins to fall. Now rushes to Ikuju's side, catching him as he falls and embracing him tightly. Tears stream down Now's face as she questions how he ended up in such a terrible state and why he pushed himself so far. Ikuju tells Now-san there is something he wants to tell her. He wants to explain everything that has happened so far. Now listens intently, tears still in her eyes as he says, but before that. Under the full moon, Ikuju suggests they go have a drink together. A profound system message appears before Ikuju, declaring that he has overcome the challenges etched in his soul. As a result, his unique skill resurrection will now have an additional effect. Furthermore, due to these additional effects, new system functions, inventory, and scenario have been unlocked, signifying the end of a fierce battle and the dawn of new possibilities. In a world ravaged by monsters, where casualties have surpassed 3 million and governments are collapsing, people run for their lives. 2 men rest amidst the ruins, one revealing he's level 7 while his friend is level 6, both pondering their survival. One of them expresses a desire to have Minoman as an ally. His companion, unfamiliar with the name, asks about Bullman, and learns he became a hot topic after the monsters appeared. The first man prepares to show a picture of Bullman on his phone. The man explains that Bullman is the one who defeated the Minotaur with a huge axe. He adds that Bullman is probably still in the city. The scene shifts to a hospital. Inside, Now-san visits Ikuju, who is recovering in bed, and offers him an apple. Ikuju tells Now-san to have the apple herself, noting it's a rare commodity now. Now encourages him not to force himself to eat, suggesting he have it when he can. Ikuju gratefully accepts her kindness. He reflects that the battle with the Minotaur left him bedridden for 2 whole days. According to Now-san, the hospital they are in is relatively safe because it's guarded by the self-defense forces. Ikuju thinks about how quickly people adapted to the new reality of levels and stats, thanks to early internet access. Now-san starts to ask Ikuju about his level but trails off, looking sleepy. Ikuju, concerned, asks Now-san if she's okay, noting that she's spaced out. Now quickly denies it, claiming she's wide awake though she yawns. Overcome by exhaustion, Now-san falls asleep on Ikuju's bed. With Now asleep, Ikuju turns his attention to what he considers the remaining issue. Ikuju observes the current world inversion rate displayed as 2.66%. He remembers Now-san's explanation that the rate increases by 1% at midnight, but notes it's definitely slowing down compared to before. He surmises that the decrease in the progression rate is a result of defeating the Minotaur, as the system indicated the progression level of world inversion was decreasing after the boss monster's defeat. Ikuju reflects that if boss monsters are not defeated, the world inversion rate will increase, and monsters will grow stronger to a point where they won't stand a chance. He believes someone must take the lead and defeat the boss, and he feels he is the only one who can currently go that far. He thinks to himself that he is no hero and never intended to be one. His sole desire was to protect Now-san. Now-san, still asleep, murmurs that just being able to protect her is enough for her. Ikuju is taken aback by her words spoken in sleep. Ikuju calls out to Now-san, surprised by her sleep-talking. Now-san shifts in her sleep, moving closer to him on the bed and murmuring. Ikuju becomes visibly flustered by her closeness. He internally panics, questioning her sudden behavior and wondering if she has fallen for him. Now-san continues to murmur in her sleep. Ikuju concludes that she is merely half asleep. She then softly comments that he smells good, prompting Ikiju to decide to leave the situation as is for now. He resolves that for the time being, he needs to focus on healing his battered body. Ikiju views his status screen showing his details. Ikiju Akira LV938, stats 58 acquired points, unique skill resurrection and system expansions, inventory and scenario. He observes that various things have increased and questions the nature of inventory and scenario. He remembers that these new system functions appeared after he defeated the Minotaur. He clicks on the inventory option to investigate. The inventory screen opens, displaying empty slots. Ikiju correctly identifies inventory as a game-like storage space for items. He decides to test the inventory function with his smartphone. His smartphone is successfully added to the inventory. He notices an option to delete the item, and though not fully grasping it, decides to delete the smartphone from the inventory. Next, Ikiju decides to check out the scenario function. The system displays a message. The scenario is not currently activated. Ikiju observes that the scenario function is still not usable and lacks any explanation. He decides to postpone dealing with it. He then turns his attention to his 58 accumulated points, ready to acquire some skills. Ikiju re-examines his stats, puzzled by the magic value. He questions if his magic power value is decreasing, noting the bracketed number next to his current magic stat, suspecting it represents the original value. Considering his sprint skill, he deduces that the magic power consumed might not recover as it did before, effectively making his magic power stat the limit for its usage. Given this, he decides he should prioritize a magic power recovery skill and proceeds to select other skills as well. Ikiju has finished allocating his points, acquiring Magic Power Recovery LV1, Auto Regeneration LV1, Physical Enhancement LV3, and Sixth Sense LV1. He first checks the details of Magic Power Recovery LV1, a passive skill that restores magic power over time, and deems it essential to confirm how long it takes. The second skill, Auto Regeneration LV1, is also passive and gradually restores health over time. Ikiju notes his pain is easing, suggesting it's already effective. Ikiju considers the third skill he acquired, Physical Enhancement, which costs 30 points. His stats reflect the LV3 increase, with strength, endurance, and speed each boosted by 50. He believes these enhancements will allow him to fight even strengthened monsters. He then reviews the details of the Sixth Sense LV1 skill, which enhances intuition for quick decision-making, noting its high cost of 12 points. With only 2 points left, Ikiju considers investing them to enhance the power of his sprint skill by increasing his magic power, as now murmurs beside him. He invests his remaining 2 points, and his magic stat increases by 6, leaving him with 0 acquired points. Ikiju understands that it's possible to create a build according to one's preferences, and it doesn't increase by 1 point for each level. Concluding this path means he will develop a brute force build. Having strengthened himself, Ikiju decides to focus on recovery until he is ready to move again. Suddenly, Naosin begins to wake up, murmuring "eh," as Ikiju looks on in surprise. Naosin drowsily asks if it's morning, while Ikiju responds with an uncertain Now more awake and blushing, Now is confused about why she is on his bed. Ikiju explains to a flustered Now that she was half asleep and simply fell over onto the bed. Now then questions why Ikiju isn't moving, to which he can only stammer. Realization dawns on Now as she remembers falling asleep. Naosin, now fully awake and looking at Ikiju, playfully asks what he will do if she says she does not want to get up. Ikiju is visibly surprised and flustered by her direct question. He wonders internally if this is a pivotal moment developing between them. The chapter opens with Naosin gazing intently at Ikiju, who is in bed. Sweating and flustered, Ikiju questions Naosan's sudden proximity. Naosan moves closer, appearing as though she is about to kiss Ikiju. The intimate moment is shattered by the sound of a door sliding open forcefully. A uniformed man, Lieutenant Colonel Karub, introduces himself, explaining he hurried upon hearing Ikiju was awake. Karub observes Naosan positioned over Ikiju on the bed. Naosan and Ikiju react with alarm as Karub, misunderstanding, encourages them to continue. Ikiju desperately shouts that it's all a misunderstanding. Karub pauses thoughtfully before speaking again. He then addresses Ikiju and Naosan, offering to take a little more time. Karub formally introduces himself as Minoru Karub, clarifying that the SDF protects the hospital and that he fights alongside Nane-san. Ikiju reacts with surprise, questioning if Naosan is also involved. Naosan confirms that due to limited SDF personnel, some of them, including herself, occasionally fight together, to which Ikiju responds with understanding. Karub tells Ikiju that his victory over the Minotaur has been a strong reminder of hope, and that they are deeply grateful. He declares Ikiju a savior and the hope of humanity. Ikiju, embarrassed, tries to downplay Karub's praise, while Naosan agrees with Karub. With the pleasantries exchanged, Karub states he has a favor to ask of Ikiju. Just then another soldier, Makamoto, enters the room, apologizing for the intrusion. Makamoto, arms crossed, asks Ikiju if he's the rumored person everyone is talking about. Ikiju looks surprised by the sudden question. Makamoto glares intently at Ikiju. Internally, Makamoto scoffs, noting Ikiju is only level 9 and therefore incredibly weak, doubting he could have defeated a boss monster. Makamoto bluntly tells Ikiju he looks like a rag and won't be of any use for some time. Naosan glares disapprovingly at Makamoto's rudeness. Karub asks Makamoto what brought him there, and Makamoto responds that he came to see what kind of guy Ikiju was, expressing his disappointment. Makamoto's gaze then falls upon Naosan and his demeanor changes. He is immediately smitten, wondering about this girl and exclaiming internally that she's completely his type. Makamoto leans in towards Naosan, asking her age, name, if she lives nearby, and bluntly stating she's his type. Naosan turns away, thinking about how her previous living situation was all guys and no one worth protecting, contrasting it with the hospital. Makamoto, undeterred, gets closer and declares he's decided Naosan will be his woman. Naosan reacts with visible shock and disgust, exclaiming in disbelief. Makamoto gestures towards Ikiju, telling Naosan that monsters have become stronger due to the inversion rate. He claims a rag like Ikiju won't be able to protect himself. Naosan glares at Makamoto, who continues by saying defeating the boss was probably just a fluke. Makamoto proudly declares that his level is 25, boasting he's the highest level and strongest in the hospital. He grabs Naosan's arm, suggesting they go to his room to discuss their future carefully. Naosan utters a distressed sound as Makamoto tries to pull her away. Ikuju's hand shoots out, stopping Makamoto by gripping his wrist. Ikiju explains to Makamoto that Naosan appears scared. With a calm smile, Ikiju requests that Makamoto go back for now. Makamoto stares in utter disbelief, then his expression contorts with rage as he questions Ikuju's audacity. Makamoto angrily demands who Ikiju thinks he is addressing. Ikuju's grip on Makamoto's wrist intensifies. Makamoto's face contorts in a silent scream of shock and pain. He cries out, exclaiming about the pain in his hand and questioning the source of this immense power. Ikiju watches calmly as Makamoto struggles, who internally remarks that it's ridiculous for a level 9 to possess such strength. A display of Ikiju Akira's stats appears, showing his level 9 and overwhelmingly high strength, endurance, and speed. Makamoto is astounded by these numbers. Makamoto's eyes widen in terror as the realization dawns on him that he is facing imminent death. Ikiju lets go of Makamoto's wrist, who recoils in pain. Ikiju apologizes, stating he thought he exerted little strength and finds it hard to gauge. Makamoto groans. Karub, witnessing the display, orders a sweating Makamoto to leave. Makamoto storms out, muttering curses under his breath. Naosan apologizes for the disturbance, and Ikiju echoes her sentiment. Karub addresses Ikiju, ready to return to the topic of his request. Karub explains that they are constantly facing difficult situations because of monster attacks. He elaborates that a boss monster has been sighted near the hospital, and an invasion would be catastrophic. Karub bows deeply, formally requesting Ikiju to defeat the boss monster, a plea echoed by Naosan. Ikiju listens, having anticipated such a request. Naosan, however, believes this is too much to ask of Ikiju. Naosan expresses her worry, pointing out that Ikiju endured so much and fought desperately against the previous monster. Ikiju listens as Naosan continues, emphasizing that his body hasn't fully recovered yet. Karub interjects, admitting he knows it's a difficult request but insists it's their only option. He tells Ikiju that he is aware of his incredible stats, despite his low level, and won't ask about the nature of his power right now. Karub prostrates himself, pleading with Ikiju to lend them his strength for the sake of those who survived. Ikiju calmly states that he understands and will accept the request. Naosan, surprised by his quick acceptance, calls out his name, as Ikiju asks Karub to lift his head. Karub remains bowed, overcome with emotion. After a moment, Karub expresses his profound gratitude from the bottom of his heart. The three are left in the quiet room after the weighty decision. Ikiju internally resigns himself to the task, believing there's probably no one else who can defeat the boss monster. Naosan sits on the edge of a bed, calling Ikiju's situation a terrible story. She recounts how he went through a mind-numbing time loop and finally managed to defeat the monster. She emphasizes that despite this, on the day he woke up and still not fully healed, he's being forced to fight another monster again. Naosan passionately exclaims that they can't possibly ask this of him and should at least let him rest a little while. Ikiju looks on pensively. He thinks to himself that Naosan wouldn't understand it at the moment. Ikiju reveals internally that he had, at one point, given up on fighting. Ikiju explains that Naosan taught him he wasn't alone and gave him the courage to face challenges again. He states his resolve to fight in order to protect the people who are important to him, as Nao-san listens intently. Ikuju smiles reassuringly at Nao-san, telling her not to worry and that he will definitely defeat the boss. Nao-san whispers Ikuju's name, touched by his determination. Nao-san stands up facing Ikuju and declares that if that's the case, she'll go with him too, as they are going to defeat the boss together. Ikuju is completely taken aback by her sudden resolve, exclaiming in surprise. Nao-san admits that going with Ikuju right now would make her a burden, but she seems to have more to say. Nao-san insists that Ikuju challenging the boss alone is completely wrong, and that even so she wants to fight alongside him. Ikuju listens, his expression serious. With heartfelt emotion, Nao-san pleads for Ikuju to let her accompany him, to take her with him. Ikuju looks at Nao-san, clearly moved and surprised by her plea. A system notification flashes, stating that specific conditions have been met and a scenario will be activated. The notification elaborates, Nanisnow's scenario with you will occur. Nanisnow seeks to understand your warmth and wishes to support you. Please cooperate with Nanisnow and defeat the boss that has appeared in this world. Ikuju's eyes widen in confusion as he processes the unexpected system message, questioning what is happening. The system further explains that participation is optional, and his resurrection power will be effective for now during this scenario, though she will lose it afterward. An image of Nao-san appears alongside a prompt asking Ikuju if he would like to start Nanisnow's scenario with you, with options to accept or decline.